Hi, everybody. Welcome back to 8's, and it's my pleasure to introduce Beyond 8. We have had some interactions with them in the past, but today we're here to meet some budding authors, writers who have been looking at the LGBTQI movement uh, at this young age of 15, 16-year-old. They have not only ventured into a topic which, in spite of all the laws and regulations that have come in, still stands uh, at a very precarious stage. They have taken the courage to not only look at it, study it deeply, but also have taken it upon themselves to write about it and try and spread the message of why we need to be diverse and inclusive in today's world and environment. Welcome, Swami. Welcome, Vivo. Welcome, Harini. We have one more person, but unfortunately, I think she's locked out for now. Suhani, she should join us back. Swami and Vivo are the one of, so there's a team of authors. Unfortunately, all of them are not here today. But Swami and Vivo are the part of the team of authors, and Harini and Suhani have been in the journey of this book and the book launch. Collectively, I'm going to have a bit of interaction with all of them, looking at how they came about this, what inspired them to take this, and the journey of the book and the book release. So welcome everybody, and welcome guys, welcome Swami, Vivo, and Harini. So let's begin. Simple to begin with, tell me, how did this all start? I want to know the journey that you people went in from its conception to its launch. So over to you guys.
Yeah, so can I answer that question? Yeah, okay, fine. So how this all started? So this was around mid-June. I mean, at the end of June. We are almost done with the coursework about the course material, portion coverage, history of LGBTQIA plus community, Stonewall riots, and then some other portions were left here and there, but then we were almost done with it. Ahalya had finished a good chunk of the portions. Then we just want to do something special, like some finale, like some project or some kind of work to give a send off for the course. We stuck with it for a year, so we wanted to do something special. This handbook was one idea. We basically planned to make a small 50-page handbook, sell it to our family members, make money out of it. That's how it all began. Later, when we started to discover, learn, research more, we discovered we felt the complexity of the topic. It was not simple, and therefore the purpose completely changed. Halfway through the book, we had experts, we had mentors like Devaka and Pratikana helping us cite properly, go and research more. The law citations that Atri had written in the end was all later editions. The planning was more extensive, and then beyond it itself started to help us through the project and make it as professional as possible. So what started as a small 50-page handbook for our family members became a big Insta post that was supposed to change societies. So that's the start, and now that's the end.
Lovely. Vivo, would you like to say anything?
So we probably cleared out however we started out, but we also went through a lot of what I could say is in the beginning stages, we had lots of ideas, we had loads of ideas. Like Swami was talking about, we had the idea of selling it to people, or we had other ideas of making it, rather than an online PDF, make it into a book, like a proper book, print it all out and sell physical copies, so that the value of it would be more interesting. And we definitely had the goodwill from the beginning. We definitely had the idea of sharing knowledge and making sure people know facts. But we also had the idea of profit in our heads as well. It started out like that, but like as we progressed on, so many parts of our journey changed us in the way that we didn't do this for the sake of profit, or for the sake of doing it because it's a project. We did it because it actually mattered to us. Slowly, all of us started to get really, really attached to what we wanted to do. and we were all motivated to pursue this even further than further than normal, and that's how it led to us making, whatever we put into form today.
Lovely. Thanks so much. And we haven't told our viewers what it's called. So which one of you wants to give the name to them?
The name of the book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We forgot.
You forgot.
We have forgotten.
So what's it called?
There's room for everyone.
Tell me, how did you pick up the topic? Not there's room for everyone, the issue of LGBTQ.
I think Devaka can do it. She only chose the topic.
Yeah.
It's not like she chose the topic. We volunteered into it. So basically, Karthavyam is a social solving program. It's one of the modules in Beyond 8. In that, you have various issues like environmental pollution. I mean, Devaka can go on. She knows a lot better. Akka, please.
Can I?
Yeah, of course, please.
Okay, so we had a bunch of topics in mind. Okay, like we were just thinking initially, children were saying, can we just name it as Karthavyam 1.0? Like, and then we were slowly getting into the crux of the book because we can see that it is unfolding in different directions, right? And then we were thinking that, okay, who are we catering this to? What is the outcome of this book that we are expecting, right? We just want to make the people in the society feel that there's room for everyone. It's not, you're not bucketed, you're not put labels, and we're not trying to categorize people, right? There's room for everyone, and there's a room for everyone to express themselves, to be themselves, to represent themselves, however they want to. So we were thinking about this as one of the topics, and suddenly all of them, like all the authors and the co-mentors, suddenly it felt like, this is the perfect term for this book, and that's what we are trying to get it as an outcome. So yeah, that's how we fixed on the topic. We had around 10 to 15 topics in mind, but this felt like the perfect fit for the intention, so that's how we ended up with the term.
I would just like to add one more point here. Like, this does not happen suddenly. There was a proper curve with a good slope, when we charted out our interests when it comes to discussing and writing about this community. So basically, in our 11th grades, we had a debate about LGBTQIA plus inclusion and policy making. So how can we make them feel more comfortable? How can we construct toilets that are more, gender friendly? How can we bring in school policies? How can we change dress codes in professional environments? We had hardcore debates, in schools, in Beyond It about these issues, and we had to do some proactive writing as well on these topics. After doing such activities, our base was a bit more strong and firm before entering into the module. And after giving us the subject choices, the teachers themselves felt that, because we had such a strong and firm base in this topic, we could involve and learn from a gender expert. Ahalya Ganesh is doing her PhD in Finland. So she mentored us and taught us quite a few nuances and intricacies with the topic. And yeah, there were so many things behind. It was not a single decision that was just dropped on the face of us. So yeah.
Actually, you've answered my next question. I was just going to ask, how did the research happen? How did the information come in? So do you want to, maybe Vivo could tell us a little more about the process of actually understanding the issue, and then how did you get into actually writing about it?
So in the Karthavyam module, we had, like Swami introduced Alia. So Alia gave us, since she was doing her, master's in Finland, she was our main source of information, research, and she also gave us perspectives. Every day, every Saturday when we had Karthavyam, she gave us a few questions and she gave us a few instances. What she did is she developed the way we thought. That's how we began. She gave us. She never said this is right or this is wrong. She always, whatever we said, if I said something or Swami said something, she'd say why. Why is that? Why is there something to say this? Why is something like that? And that first helped us critically think about things, especially from the gender, talking about gender and the community, etc. And from there, our building blocks started. We started making more building blocks. It grew and became a whole wall. Then we started getting into more frequently learning about historical occurrences, current occurrences. If you've heard of a few instances we've actually included in the book itself. And then we took our step. As soon as we decided, okay, we're going for the book, we took our first length into researching. We looked at, together, we came together to look at, history. We looked at the Stonewall incident. We looked at the current justice of Tamil Nadu, who went through intense courses in order to learn about the community and make himself less ignorant in terms of the situation. And then we started researching online. We started, as you see, there's a page where we had a few pages include personal reports, personal instances where we anonymous, because we always want to protect the privacy of the people. We can't make someone because that's their own right. But using these instances as an example, giving people, comfort in understanding that they're not the only ones in the world. There are millions around who are still searching for their identity. And all these, small parts is how we built this big puzzle. And we came to the conclusion that, okay, we're still I'm not saying we've gone beyond how much we understand. There's so much yet to understand and so much knowledge yet to take in. But to the extent where we require to make sure that, a book that anyone can read and anyone can understand, that knowledge we covered in this puzzle building experience.
No, I have to say, I mean, I have read a fair bit of literature on LGBTQ movement, and I'll say this book really does. Is simple, it's easy to read. I mean, I remember when I'd asked for the book and I was like, oh my God, I'll have to read another long book because
That's a short read, half an hour.
Yeah, but then when I got reading into it, and because it was so captivating, it's been done in such a simplistic and yet the journey. I mean, I really enjoyed the journey of it, which was really fascinating. I couldn't keep it down. I literally went through it at one go, just the last bit of it, I left it. And but yeah, pretty much the main bit of it, I just read it through once. And I have to say, I was impressed. I was really impressed because I have read a fair bit of literature on it. And yeah, and what I really enjoyed was how you even trace the judicial process of it, where you got all the people who started the petition. And
Atreya did it
normally,
completely. Atreya did it completely.
Yeah, you have to thank
From start
Atreya
to
for
scratch,
that.
she took care of the full process. He was asked to do the timeline for the whole judgment from 2017, and they said that it's illegal sex to then the latest judgment. Everything. I think it was 2015. 2015 they called it as illegal sex, and then 2017 the judgment was reopened because of another case filing, and then they said that it's unconstitutional and that Article 377 should be removed. Yeah, the full process was timelined by Atreya completely.
Beautifully done, I have to say. I mean, anybody can understand it. It's not heavy. It's a language which is very user friendly, and yeah, and it has been made very interesting, and so it captivates your interest. Kudos to you guys for that. It's beautiful. So I'm going to go a little into the book now and just reflect on a few things which, to me, again, considering I'm looking at you guys as 16 to 18-year-olds who've written this book, and a few lines which stuck with me, and I want to use those lines to build the rest of our conversation. Yeah? So whichever one of you is comfortable, let's just take it on. So the one thing that I really, right in the beginning, it said, that how it's often believed that serious issues should be left to adults, and how you guys, and I'm going to quote it, one should begin as early and as close to ourselves as we choose to. So I want you guys to dwell on this and explain this line a little more to our viewers. Either one.
It's a deep line. When it comes to responsibility or anything that's socially moving or changing, it is left to adults, sadly or goodly or greatly, but it is considered as adults' responsibility. Now what happens is, generally children are quite open-minded when it comes to learning and assimilating information. and therefore it is at that particular age that they should be exposed to these topics and think and make themselves believe that the initiative is from within and not from an external agency, because that attitude has seeped into our nation quite a bit. When the roads are not right, oh, the government's having a problem. Oh, the government's are not fixing the roads right. Oh, the drainages are bad. Oh, the government's not fixing the drainages. So the drainages are really bad. And taxes or any of these issues, we feel like the onus is on the government and not on us. In fact, the government is because of us, right? We choose our leaders and the leaders are us. And therefore, action and initiative should come from us. And that belief can be only instilled at a very young age when children are open-minded and empathetic and aware, more aware. And therefore, that's why we wrote that statement, that exposing ourselves to socially changing issues. And that Greta Thunberg is one of the greatest examples for these issues, right? A 16-year-old lady from Norway, really talking about climate change and bringing great impact. She's a teenager after all, but look at the impact that she made in it. She's being talked about in the European Union every other day. So change need not come from elders all the time. Students can do it, young people can do it. And if that energy is brought into especially a youthful India,
No,
great
I
stuff.
agree completely with you. And I think that's why
Great
we
stuff.
are at 8Ps, and what
Yeah,
we're trying to do at 8Ps is just
Yeah.
that. And I think that's why it resonated with me so closely, that you
Yeah.
begin as early as possible and start young, and the impact is longer. And as you correctly said, the bias doesn't come in. Uh, Youth is as unbiased as it can be, because later, of course, things start coming in, our judgments get clouded. But yeah, thanks, Swami, for that. So after this, I'm going to another line which says LGBTQI plus community is not another group of people, but a part of an individual's identity, is what we want the handbook to convey. So you're trying to get the handbook to convey exactly what?
I'll answer the question. So basically, the idea is that in history, we always see the LGBT community, regardless of how much how much we've changed, we see them as another. Most society sees them as another. Because saying that the other is stating that the current heterosexual cisgender individual is the norm, and the LGBT community is just some people who've chosen to love in a different way. That's something that we want to break down. We want to show that identity is what matters. You can't take someone's identity and throw it into a place and put it in a place saying you belong here. This is your space. We're allowing you to have the space. You're another person. That's regardless of how much people say that's changed. It's still it's still discrimination. It's still saying that you're different than us. What we want to convey here is that as an individual, we all have identities. Where we're born, how we want to perceive our gender, who we want to love and who we don't want to love, where we, our culture, all that is a part of our identity. Anyone who's born in India and is assimilated with the culture is an Indian. Yeah, regardless of South Indian or a North Indian, still Indian. You still have the aspect of Indian. What matters is that your identity isn't pushed down or ostracized, and that's what we want to show. We don't want to make people think that the LGBT community is something else. It's another foreign concept that doesn't exist. It's been there since history started. Homosexuality and any sort of sexuality beyond the norm that we want to break down has always existed. It's always been a part of everyone's identity, and that's what we want to show. We don't want to make people feel like what they are right now or how they are is something that's so different, and that's our idea. So let's say you pick up the book as in the future, any child or any adult, and they read the book. We're not going to tell them, oh, the LGBT community is this, the LGBT community is that, and this is how they using that same word again and again. No, we want to say being part of the LGBT community is a part of an identity. You can be a car enthusiast, that's your identity. And same thing, you are a part of the LGBT community, that's your identity. That's what I'm almost sure. There's no specialty about it. It's as equal as to anything else that you want to affirm yourself with.
That's so true. And I'm just going to take this liberty to say then I guess the other thing that you guys have written is diversity is being invited to the party, individual is being asked to dance, stems from this. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
If we get into that identity basis and if we are all Indians, then Swami, one of you wants to continue on this line, on this phrase?
Inclusivity is being asked to dance, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a very powerful statement. I resonate with it quite a lot. It's very normal for us to see a society where, men control everything. And I'm talking about women equality here. It's a very feminist, it's a feminist argument where women don't participate. And we're totally fine with that system. India's employment rate for women is appalling. 26% of the female population in India only go to work. So these kinds of things seem to be normal. First of all, acknowledging this as an issue itself needs to take an initiative. And even if acknowledged, there is a lot of problems go on from there, like any conflict. Now, this is only about women, right? But if we're talking about LGBTQIA plus community, their representation is even more marginalized. So first of all, getting yourself represented itself is a big issue. Post getting see if there is not enough representation, then there is very little or no scope at all for improvement, acknowledgement, going up the hierarchy and proving yourself. Yes, there are a few entrepreneurs here and there from the LGBTQ plus community who have got success, but that's not their story. I'm only talking about the entrepreneurs here, but when it comes to employment, when it comes to social acceptance, when it comes to general meetings, when it comes to shows, when it comes to Olympics, athletics, these kind of events, so there needs to be more representation just for them to prove and grow as a society. They are as human as anyone else. So to get themselves marginalized because of something that they're not responsible for is sad. And therefore, inclusion rates should be deliberate for them to grow and become more normal. Because once you stop representing them, there is little or no scope for them to prove themselves in society. And if you don't prove yourself in society, it's extremely hard to get acceptance and acknowledgement. And this is a blockchain. It's like a domino effect. So that's why like they've got to dance when they get their representation, and there has to be more dance parties for them to participate in. Just like anything else, and patriarchy has to dissolve for a society to become more enriching and proactive. Yes.
I agree,
Yeah.
So as I was reading the book, the one thing that you guys kept talking about is about using the pronouns to represent people, right? How do you feel about it? So this is interesting for me on a very personal level, because of course, being part of the patriarchal system and being here for the last almost 50 years now, I'm used to he, she, they, them. I mean, I'm going to be very honest. And even for me, who does believe I'm quite progressive, to kind of start using pronouns for different people in a different manner is tough. Not because I don't want to, it's just that I guess the grammar is stuck in my head, right? Brennan Martin was drilled into my mind when I was 6 years old, and I'm still stuck with that. And so to remove that from my brain and bring in other pronouns, it's going to be a huge journey for me. Any thoughts on how one can make it simpler? I mean, I would love to learn it, because for me, as much as I said, I'm very open and very progressive, but the pronoun bit of it somehow has not worked for me so far. So any tips, have you guys tried it? Did you, while you were researching, did you try speaking? Did you try addressing it in that manner?
I've had a few conversations with my colleagues. But their responses weren't promising. It was LGBT, now it's LGBTQIA plus. The plus basically means that there could be more variations. One of the things that we discussed about the book launch was that gender does not operate in absolute terms. So it operates in a spectrum. You could feel more man one day, more woman another day. It doesn't mean that you're only going to be a man or a woman for the whole set of your life. And therefore things are very fluid when it comes to gender. um, Things take time. It's only been 30 years since apartheid got abolished. I'm just giving context.
Right.
So talking about reform and talking about reforms when it comes to policy making for LGBTQIA community, it will take some time. It's not going to be immediate. People need to digest, but societies will keep changing. You know, especially Black uprising, Black Lives Matter movements, when feminist movements, when these kind of initiatives are taking some uprising, obviously policies towards LGBTQIA community will also improve over time. And therefore, these things will slowly be drilled first in classrooms, then in corporate work, then in parties, then in restaurants. But at this point in time, asking people out is the best solution. How would you like to get yourself addressed? And they would be very open and sharing because it's very personal to them, right? And we're not, and this question is not going to be offensive for anyone who is a part of this community. Asking their pronouns out is not going to be a complicated task. It is not offensive. It is as simple as anything else. And asking them out is the best way forward. If you want to have any conversation or to like call them out, asking them is the best solution. It's not going to be offensive. If we politely ask and consider them, I think it's going to be easy.
That's actually, for lack of a better word, it's makes sense asking before you say. Definitely, I would feel hesitant to ask also, but that's me. And not, again, I said, for me, it's the grammar in my head, which is always stuck. And
In fact, very interesting though, in our first Karthavyam class, the Ahalyaka asked us to introduce ourselves with our pronouns. So this might become a norm in a classroom when the teacher asks the students to introduce themselves. They have to say, "Hi, I am so and so. I was from this school, or this is my first year at this school, and I would like to be addressed as he, him, she, they, whatever pronoun they feel comfortable with." This could become the norm in some time. This was how our first class
I really
was.
hope so.
Yeah.
It would be wonderful if it does become a norm. So, what was the response from the class? I'm very curious to know.
Well, everybody responded with their pronouns. We had to be very open-minded if we were going to learn a topic, the LGBTQIA community. None of us hesitated. It was simple. And the cohort was it was very small. It was only 5 people. 5. So everybody comfortably answered with their pronouns. They introduced themselves, they said their hobbies, passions, and then they said their pronouns.
That's a beautiful start. I wish Alia had been here. Sorry, Devashri was saying something.
Sorry, I would like to add just one point related to what we are discussing, right? So, yeah, like how Swami said, asking them out is like the first step. So, initially, like, all of us were with the pre notion that how does it even matter? Like, why is it so important to know how they like to be addressed, right? So we were having conversations about privileges that we have, right? We did a small game around it, like we did with all the learners, not just with the Karthavyam, the authors. But so that is when I think each one of us felt like it matters. It matters to them, and as part of the society, it is our responsibility to make them, give them the right to be addressed as how they want to be. So one thing that we even the other authors tried out was like when we were approaching to people to hear their stories, the first question in their interview was to like, how would you like to be addressed, right? And these children were in just ninth grade when they did these interviews, right? Ninth or 10th grade. So that became like, we didn't like it. There was no brainstorming required for that, right? It became like a norm when they drafted these questions because they felt like, that is where we start with, being an ally or, being part of the community, right? Wherever we are, that would be our first question. And that's where we start with the change, right? So I just thought I would add that other perspective.
Thanks for that. Thank you. So you did have interaction with the community.
Yes.
It was very sparse.
Yes.
Very sparse.
Yeah, so the stories that are there in the book, those are real interviews. Okay. And we do have people part of that community in our own ecosystem who are quite open about it. So during the book launch, one of the learners who are part of the community had a debriefing or shared their journey in that book launch, which was quite strong. It made the whole concept of the book itself much stronger, and it took it to another level when you actually hear those words from the people who are in the part of the community, right? Apart, like, say, let's say even before that, people were looking at it as a book done by like 4 5 authors with the data they have collected, their knowledge, their intention, just put in the book, right? When this book is acknowledged by a person who belongs in that community, right? That became like a huge hit. It kind of acknowledged our efforts, and it gave a reassurance saying that we did the right thing.
I was just going to ask that to Swami and Vivo. How did it feel when the book actually you got it in your hand? You know how they say when the authors get the first print. How did you guys feel? Did you get the first copy?
I mean, it was a shared copy. I mean, my response was not overwhelming. Mine was average because I'd seen the PDF quite a few times where sat through, edited it every now and then. We kept being called for further edits and further installments in the book, additions. So it was work well done. I was satisfied, but I didn't get any jolt or rush after receiving the first copy because my objective was not about that.
All right.
I'm sorry, my response is very boring, but I had to be candid. Yeah.
Rather than the ending where we got the copy, the unfinished copy, it's probably the process of finishing that helped. That was more relating, because like Swami said, so many edits, so many changes. Like ever since that one student gave us
Yeah, Dhruv Anand. Yeah, he's a part of the queer community. Basically, he said that this is more like us versus them kind of perspective. We need to change it a bit and make it more inclusive, and therefore we had to do a full 360 work on the book.
Yeah, so that was a very eye-opening process for all of us, because we are still looking at it as a different person. We are not part of the community, right? That's when we understood the power of the community. So when the person from the queer community read the book, they had so many new ideas, and they looked at the book in a different perspective, which was blindsided by all of us.
Yeah.
Though we tried so hard to think about every single details, the 360 degrees, only the person who is part of the community understands what it actually is, right? And we were very glad that we got it reviewed by that person as well, so that we actually had to go back and edit, eliminate few components and redo some of the components, right?
No,
And
true.
that's what that became the best version of the book. We couldn't have done anything better than that.
I have to share with Swami and Vivo. So as a professional earlier, I used to be a researcher and I would write journals and small book, my project report. And you're saying that by the end of it, once you've gone through all the edits and you're done with all the edits, you literally want to get hold of that book and put it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing of the glamorization of getting the first copy somehow doesn't happen in reality. But I still remember one of the chapters I was doing, and it was the last bit of it. And I was very passionate about a certain para with which I wanted it to end. And the editor kept coming back with it and saying, you need to rework on this. And I kept saying, no, I'll not do it. And finally, I told them, I said, either you run it with this or you don't run it. I don't care. I'm done. But that is what happens with the journey of writing. It is so the editing bit of it is so taxing that it does take away a lot from your writing. But honestly, I'm so glad to hear that you did go through the process of actually taking it to the community and getting it reviewed by somebody. Because as you rightly said, the perspective that comes from within, one can never give it standing. However close we may feel, however we may feel we understand and we empathize and we are part of the community, we've lived the journey. I don't think it's possible to understand it till you are one, and that can only happen from within. So yeah, I mean, great. In fact, I wanted to ask that if it had been reviewed by somebody. So yeah, that was going to be my next question, again answered by you guys beautifully. So tell me about the launch. How did, in fact, if Harini wants to join in here, how was the response? So the launch was only for a closed community, I mean, for a closed circle, or did you open it out to public? How did the launch take place?
So for the launch, the 8B members, we event managed the event. So we restricted the people into only our community, like beyond 8 parents and facilitators, because it was pandemic time, and so we thought of avoiding large crowd. But the event was live on Instagram, and I think many of us saw
It is
it.
still there. It's still there.
Yeah, it's still there.
The event launch is still there.
Yeah, I have gone through it. But in terms of responses, even within the community, so I mean, I understand restricting it because of COVID, but even within the Beyond 8 community, was everybody very, I mean, how were the responses? Let me not put it in. Even within the community, did you face any backlash, or was it received very well? How did it go?
I think everyone really liked the part that we, like young people, are into these kind of social topics, and everyone was very happy. But there were no much negative comments or anything. The whole review was very appreciated.
That's good to know. Great. And you guys got a good review from the media as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. You want to talk about that, Swami? Or Harini, anyone of you?
They took a small interview and asked, almost, they asked us about our journeys, right? So how we came about with this book idea, how we did it, and then how we allocated the portions according to the students' interest. Athay wanted to do law, so he did whatever he had to do. Shreya likes stories, so she took the story part. Aishwarya also liked stories, she took the story part. She was also there in designing. We had actually curated quite a few pictures to insert it in, but then okay, that idea didn't work, but at least we had some effort put into it. Vivashwat likes to be open-minded and debunk myths, so he did the myth versus fact, assumptions versus reality for the gender inclusion program. I explored and I talked about the open-mindedness and how I'm okay, you're okay is much better than saying I'm okay, you're not okay. I discussed about that part in briefs, and then I talked about social equity for the LGBTQIA plus community. So whatever we did matched our interests, and the press DTX, right? So the interviewee considered these points and put it in her journal. So it was a clean process. It was a quick process. It is a quick and clean process. Yeah.
Vivo, any comments from you?
Nope, my Swami said almost whatever I wanted to. And it was after a lot of refining, what we came to the conclusion was that there is so much that we have to yet put in this book. I'm not gonna lie, we have covered a lot, but there's so much yet to discover. Like Swami said before, LGBTQIA plus, that means that there's so much more to it, and that's where we have to come to decide, where do we go from this? Because we had the person from the community who talked about who helped us enhance the book also had us give a speech on the day, and they gave the example that Swami did. It's a spectrum, man, and there's how manly you are, how womanly you are, but it's also out of the spectrum. There's also so much more out of the spectrum that we created ourselves. And they say they said that why should this spectrum be the one that exists? Why should this be the one only way of looking at things? Why should it be how manly or how womanly you are? And that's still something that I'm trying to see how we can place in the future, in our future Karthavyam projects.
Again, you've just taken off my next question. I was going
to
ask what's the view, but that's great. I mean, because the book beautifully and it's wonderful work.
Your audio is a little bit
Yeah,
low.
we
We'd love
use
to love
Yeah.
for the book to continue, as you already said, that you're trying to think and introspect on how you're going to take it forward and what should be the next step to it, and why do we have to live in that spectrum, and can we think beyond it. So do I expect another version of it?
Probably be a bit more controversial.
A
Some
bit
aspects of the book
controversial. You're not
actually
gonna
we
be just
decided not to add it in,
correct.
but I think it can be said. These things can be
Yeah.
verbally recorded. I don't mind.
Yeah,
So
I feel, yeah.
ritualistic validation and scriptural validation for the LGBTQIA plus community is there, but people don't recognize it. And a lot of our culture and customs, when it comes to Indian traditions, we need scriptural and ritualistic validation. These are musts, and if they are there, we do these things with pride. But why not the LGBTQIA plus community? In fact, it's a very deep question. And I had Piyush Anna and Pratik Anna, the facilitators at Beyond It, help me explore this topic. So there's a city called Kuvagam in Tamil Nadu, where there is a big ritual. So where all of the LGBTQIA plus community members, in Tamil known as Tirunangaigal, they go together and they are the bridesmaid for Krishna. No, they become Krishna. They become Krishna and they marry this character called Aravan, who is the son of the Pandavas. Basically 2 days before, he's going to be sacrificed for the war, for the Mahabharata Kurukshetra war. But before that, he's being married because that is his last wish, that he wants to get married to someone. And therefore Krishna takes the form of a woman and marries this character, and he's seen as someone who's part of the LGBTQIA plus community. This is in the Mahabharata, and therefore people take this event so personally that all of the Tirunangaigal or the transgender people in and around Tamil Nadu, in fact the whole of South India, dress themselves as bridesmaid to Aravan and marry themselves 2 days before his sacrifice. 2 days later, once he's sacrificed, they tear their bangles off, rip off their Mangal Sutras, and cry and mourn for his death. This is this has been an active part of a society for decades. There is a lot of ritualistic and scriptural validation for the community, yet they don't deserve their respect. If we dwell deep and put this in writing, there will be a lot of FIRs and petitions, which is unwanted at this stage, but there needs to be some good discussion and inclusiveness about this topic. This is a recent passion.
Swami, interestingly, there is actually a lot of written history on it.
As a book for commoners, writing this as academic journals and essays, I feel like it's
not as semi-academic, I would say, but there is a lot of written material available. It's just that it's not, people are not aware of it.
It's not promoted, right? It's not
promoted. It's not promoted, right? It's not promoted. So the history of, as they were called back then, the eunuchs. If you search under eunuchs and transgender and transvestites, you will get a lot of, like the place you're talking of, like I'm aware of it, of course, as I said, I have read quite a bit about it. But there is, so literature exists, written, the society was aware of it. So if we even dwell on our own households, units were never treated badly as, I may be completely wrong here, but the acceptance was way more earlier than it is today.
They were acknowledged. Actually, the Kama Sutra has texts where they talk about homosexual sex,
right. It's
and
all
about these intercourse. So they were acknowledged. Those societies were acknowledged.
Acknowledgement in the society, in our history, acknowledgement within the society always existed, and it's changed over the years. And now we are actually trying to re-bring in that and make that acknowledgement even more acceptable into the societies. I think what we need to.
The Britain's colonization over India, a lot of Christian ideologies actually pervaded into Hinduism, and Hinduism got into this religious framework. And therefore it had a lot of edits, chops, changes. It became very dynamic post Britain's invasion, and over here things kind of edited and took a new phase. And I think that we are facing the repercussions now.
So what I was getting to is that finally it's the society, which is what you said, that finally it's the acceptance from the society of making it mainstream, of actually accepting it, because laws can keep coming in. It's not going to make a difference unless we are willing to change. And that is where the more efforts need to be put in, is changing the mindset of people, because law is already there now. Hopefully it's not going to get repealed. It's there, it's done. But having been part of the women's movement and having been part of all the feminist movements, I can tell you, it honestly, at the end of the day, the law, of course, helps you, it validates you, you have a protection. But till the time the mindsets don't change, nothing changes in the world. So that's something I think and again, which you very beautifully written in your book, that I may misquote it a bit, but I'm still going to try and put it out. Yeah. Is there, if this is not hurting anyone in a real way, then why does one have to be curious about it? And why does the world not change for both of them? I thought that was so beautifully done, that if somebody's sexuality, if somebody's preference does not bother me, you, then why are we so bothered? Why does it become such an issue? They're not hurting me, I'm not hurting them, then why do I have to dwell on it? Why do I have to put all these myths and all these ideas around it? Why overthink? It's just what I'm saying it. Why do I need to overthink somebody's sexuality if it doesn't harm me in any manner? If it harmed me, then maybe I can think about it. But if it doesn't bother me, if it's not in any manner, as you guys said, harm, then why? And I think that is something which we need to hold on to, because that was a line which I felt was so, it could just contextualize everything. That if we look at it from the perspective of me versus you, then if I'm not being harmed by you, then why am I bothered by you? Yeah. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but in my mind, I'm
you do.
sense to myself.
A lot of sense is being there. Yeah, simple answer.
So that was something which I thought was beautifully written, and something I think if you're really building up on a next book, you should look at this. This could be really your pitch from here, where to take it, that if it's not harming anybody, then why are we bothered about it? So yeah, I'm pretty much done. There is so much more to talk, but I know this is a podcast and I don't want people to get bored of a never-ending conversation. Anything you guys want to add on? Any part, any interesting, not interesting anecdote you want to leave us with? Any experience you want to share with us, or anything I've left out? I mean,
not about leaving out, but as you talked about, this last statement, why care about someone else's choice or opinion when it doesn't affect or matter to you? Well, I had a very interesting discussion with my uncle about this topic.
Okay.
It really opened my eyes, and I don't know, I might be giving contradicting statements, but please take this with an open mind. We are so hell-bent on deciding what's right, what's wrong, and it's either black, white, or some shade of gray, but it's extremely hard for us to agree on something, because people agree on different things. Something is white, something is white, or something is gray. Not everyone can accept everything in every way. And a society that constantly agrees with everything is a boring society. And I think conflicts are, one of the fulcrums of a society. As Karl Marx, propounded the conflict theory, a lot of the things that we live around is based on conflicts. And therefore, the people who believe or who are against the LGBTQIA plus community holistically and internally believe to themselves that they are honestly doing good to society. And it is that emotion that is probing them to fight against this community and prove and disprove their existence and try to ostracize them, treat them badly, and do other kinds of stuff, giving them a lot of antithesis. It is their side of story, and they just want to do good to society in their form. It is their story and it is their form that's making them believe and do these actions. we believe in contradictory things, and therefore we add on to this conflict in a different direction. We say that no, your assumptions are not right. We believe that society can have good and better actions in these forms of ways. We believe that inclusivity should be a party and not something that's up to men. So this is our objective, and this is something that we are fighting for. And therefore we shouldn't judge their life as their life or their opinion as something that's futile or unnecessary or redundant. It is a conflict. To do this in a constructive and progressive way, it should be our objective, not to eradicate it, is my opinion. Because we will keep fighting about different things at different point in time. And not everything needs to be physical for us to care about things, right? It can also be mental and emotional. Someone's choice will hurt us in one way or the other if things go at a faster rate. And therefore, things can't be left alone for everyone at all points in time. And this is a very contradictory argument that probed me to think about the two sides of everything and not just one. Where everything is gray and nothing is black and white. So this is one of the more intellectual discoveries that I had while talking and discussing about this topic with my uncle.
That's a great conversation, I would say. And yeah, you're right. Everything does have a gray side to it. It's not easy to stick to black and white. It never is. And no matter what the topic, how simple or complicated, there will always be gray areas. And those are the areas one needs to really explore and try and see if one could work on those gray areas. But thank you for sharing that. It was really beautiful. Devashri, anything from your side?
I think I'm done. Yeah, I have nothing else to say.
One thing I would like to say here is the journey that each author went in writing the book, right? It is so heartwarming to see, right? It's because we started off with the, maybe say that very basic knowledge with the topic, and how much effort that each child is taken to ensure that they're giving the right information, they're putting it in the right way, that they are not being offensive to anyone, the language that they've kept in mind throughout the book, and the ideas they've come up with on every week, on a weekly basis, right? So all these things required a lot of effort, and that made me think that when you're really vouching for something that you believe in, you wouldn't mind taking that extra mile, to ensure that you're giving your best. So this was one, as a mentor or as a facilitator who helped the children to do it. This was my journey with them, and every week was quite challenging for both the mentors as well as the learners, right? We were, like, say, working like a team. There was no partition, there was no hierarchy or anything. But each and every week, something new will unfold, and it'll lead to a discussion, and and the response to the book was just overwhelming for us. We didn't expect such an overwhelming response, and we can see that it has reached different corners of the world. There are people from different parts of the world reaching out saying, can I have the link for the book? And this was something we didn't expect, and we are very grateful that people are very welcoming and open for such a I wouldn't say controversial, but a social cause. Yeah.
No, you've done so well.
We couldn't hear you, Zama. Sorry.
I'm saying it's so good to know that the book's done so well, and it's reaching out to different people and being accepted, which is more important with such kind of literature, that it's actually being validated and accepted by people, both of the community and not, and outsiders. So yeah, I would like to say thank you. I know I have personally circulated it since I've got the
Zama, we lost you again.
Yeah, your microphone.
both from within and outside of the community. And I have to say, they really liked it. They have really liked the book. Just one last question from my side, and it's okay. Did you make any money out of it? Considering that you started with that.
Not at all. Not at all.
No. Yeah.
So the business perspective didn't work here.
We got
be a
what
business.
I think we got what we came for.
Great.
Our objective was completed, and that's all that mattered.
Good to know that. Great. But yeah, do keep writing because I really like the way it's been written. So I would love to see more work from you guys, and of course the whole team I'm talking of. It would be great to see some more work from you guys in this perspective. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing everything so candidly with us. It's been great for me. It's been, I think, most amazing time having this very intellectual conversation with two really smart authors, budding authors, I like to call you. And as I said, I would love to see a lot more work from you guys. Thank you for sharing it with 8Ps. It's been a pleasure having you guys here.
I would like to thank the entire 8B's team for giving us this opportunity to come and share our journeys. And thank you, Akansha, for setting up the call and making this happen. So yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure always, Devashri. It's so lovely to meet your learners all the time. I mean, I would be excited.